So tonight, I want to discuss a little bit about Sfirat HaOmer. The period in history that we are in now is counting of the Omer. Now, did you know that historically, this is one of the worst tragic times for the nation of Israel? Many pogroms happened during this time, but the first time something bad happened was in the times of Rabbi Akiva. So we know that 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died during this time, between Pesach, when we started counting the Omer, and Lag BaOmer, right? Lag BaOmer, if there's one day that is the most widely celebrated holiday in the Jewish calendar, it's Lag BaOmer. Think about it. Not Yom Kippur, not Sukkot, not Passover. Lag BaOmer, approximately 500,000 Jews come to Miron to celebrate at the grave of Reb Shimon ben Yochai. Now, what makes Lag BaOmer so special? Does anybody know what is so special about Lag BaOmer? Why is it such a great holiday? Because what? Because what? Because the students stopped dying. Now, let's just analyze your statement that you said. The students of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying. Can you imagine if in 1945, after 6 million Jews perished in the Holocaust? Let's take my grandfather. My grandfather came out of Auschwitz, a broken man. He was in Hungary, deported in 1944. His wife and his 2 daughters died, were killed, were murdered in Auschwitz. He came out a broken man. He was starved. He was humiliated. And he came out with 6 million Jews died. Can you imagine? Okay, the day he comes out, we're going to celebrate now every year. Wow, I'm alive. We stopped dying. The Holocaust stopped. Can you imagine that? That's a time to celebrate? That's the same thing here. 24,000 students died in 33 days. Does anybody do a rough calculation? What's 24,000 divided by 33 days? How much is that per day?
800.
It's around 730 funerals every single day. 730 funerals a day. You know, we mark October 7 as one of the worst days of atrocities in the Jewish calendar. 1,200 Jews died, were murdered on October 7. It's terrible. But here you're talking about 730 Jews dying every single day from a plague. That's crazy. It's preposterous. Now, what's going to happen? Lag BaOmer, what do we do? Why do we celebrate? Because the Jews stopped dying. You know, there are no students left. I don't know how many students were left. According to one opinion, there were a few students, but I'm saying most of the students died. There was nothing left to they stopped dying. There's nobody left. So what do we mark on Lag BaOmer? By the way, Rabbi Akiva was a person. Why did they die, these students? Does anyone know why they died? Sinat Chinam, because it was baseless hatred. Rabbi Akiva is the author of the statement of Ve'ahavta l'reyacha kamocha, you should love a fellow Jew as you love yourself. You know, a couple of years ago in Israel, there was a teacher by the name of Nachman Shtitzer. Nachman Shtitzer taught in a Talmud Torah. He taught kids. And one day, he offered a ride to his neighbor's child. Anybody know the story of Nachman Shtitzer? He offered a ride to his neighbor's child. The neighbor's child was Chaim Boimel, 5 or 6 or 7-year-old kid. He taught in the Talmud Torah. He was a teacher. He was a student, so he took him. It was a hot summer day, and Nachman Shtitzer arrived at the Talmud Torah, went about his day teaching, and in the afternoon, when he got to his car, he realized that he forgot the child in the car. And he went into shock, into panic, and his car had curtains. Because of the hot Israeli sun, if you have your children in the car, you don't want them burning up, so you put curtains there. So Hatzalah was called right away, and unfortunately it was too late. And the child, his neighbor Chaim, died. Nachman Shtitzer was beside himself, in pain and agony. He basically murdered a child, his neighbor, unintentionally, but he murdered it. So the Israeli police started opening an investigation. It's called rashlanut, negligence. And for this, you could go to jail for a long time. During the Shiva, parents obviously were devastated. They were sitting Shiva. The grandfather, whose name was Rabbi Uriel Vigler, sent a message to Nachman Shtitzer. And he said, I want you to come pay a Shiva call. Now, the last place on earth that Nachman Stitzer wanted to be in was that Shiva call. He was the one who caused the parents to be sitting Shiva. So he said no. And Yisrael Leichter said, no, I want you to come. So he came, and when he came, he was like, okay, he was like so embarrassed, he was mortified. And as soon as he came, Rabbi Yisrael Leichter, the grandfather, sees him, calls him over, Shalom Aleichem, how are you? And he makes him feel comfortable. And he says to him, you should know that we don't blame you at all. We know this is all from Hashem. And this reached the reporters. This is like major news story. Like neighbor kills neighbor, and now they don't want to put. And he said to the police, we're not prosecuting. So the police dropped the case, and the reporters interviewed them. And Rabbi Yisrael Leichter said on news, he said, imagine you're cutting a tomato, and instead of cutting the tomato, you cut your left hand by mistake. So now, what are you going to do? You're going to punish your right hand for hurting your left hand. He said, well, what happened here? My grandchild died, was murdered, he was killed. But what am I going to do now? I'm going to hurt my left hand, my neighbor, who's a part of me. He's my fellow Jew. I'm going to hurt him. Why? Because my grandchild died? Doesn't make sense. I know the guy's apologetic. I know he's sorry. I know he made a mistake. I know he'll never do it again. But what's the point of putting him in jail? A year later, Nachman Stitzer had a child. And he invited Rabbi Yisrael Leichter to be the sandik at the bris. And at the bris, he named the child Chaim. After the child, it was tragically killed. This is what it means, true love of each other. To love a fellow Jew. During the time of Sfirat HaOmer now, what we need to do to fix the mistake of the 24,000 students is to love each other in an overdose way. In fact, what's needed now, especially in Israel, more than anything else, is to love a fellow Jew more than anything else. I have people, a person, I think, stopped coming to my shul because of my views. I think I may be too right-wing for him. And I'm like, I don't even espouse my politics. Somebody last week told me, I think I know your views, but I try not to share my views because I try to teach Torah. But as Jews, we are all one. We are all united as one people, one nation. That's what we need to do in Sfirat HaOmer. So getting back to the question. The question is, what do we celebrate on Lag BaOmer? 24,000 students stop dying. Shkoyach, thank you, God. But that's a celebration. And it's here that we learn a very, 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 very deep lesson. I just want to share that we have this concept of people stopping to die. The first time we have that, remember the original plan when Moses took the Jewish people out of the desert was to go into Israel. Israel's about an 11-day journey from Egypt. The original plan was to go to Israel, but Moses sent spies. Spies came back, disfavorable report about Israel, and they said, we want to go back to Egypt, we want to stay in the desert. So God decreed that generation between 20 years old and 6 years old shall all die in the desert. So every single year, how many Jews died? How many? Every single year, 15,000 Jews died. What they did was on Tisha B'Av, they dug their graves. 600,000 Jews dug their graves, and 15,000 didn't wake up. So they buried them the next morning. And the following year on Tisha B'Av, which was the night that the spies came back with a disfavorable report about Israel, all the 600,000 Jews left, minus 15,000, dug their graves, and 15,000 Jews died. And like this for 40 years. What's 40 years times 15,000?
600,000, yeah.
600,000, very good.
But isn't the 600,000 only the men?
Yeah, the Gzeira was only on the men. The decree was only on the men, yes. So in the 40th year, the Jews all dug their graves on Tisha B'Av, and guess what? They all woke up the next morning. So they thought, they miscalculated the day. Tisha B'Av must be the next day. So the next day, they also went to sleep in their graves. They all woke up. So they thought they miscalculated. They slept again for 6 nights until Tu B'Av. On Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, the moon is shining in all its glory. It's a full moon. So they realized that it's not Tisha B'Av anymore, and they realized that the Gzeira was over. And that's one of the reasons why it says about Tu B'Av, Lo hayu yamim tovim leYisrael. There weren't such good, joyous days like Tu B'Av and like Yom Kippur because the Jews stopped dying. So we have this phenomena. We have this concept of Jews stopping to die, and it's a celebration. So let's understand when it comes to Lag BaOmer, and here's a phenomenal, incredible lesson. Listen carefully. If you zoned out, if you spaced out, space back in right now. What we celebrate on Lag BaOmer is You have a guy, Rabbi Akiva, who at 40 years old didn't know how to read between Aleph and Bet. He went to study Torah for how many years? 24 years. He married Bill Gates' daughter. Right? He married a girl who was the daughter of the richest person around. And that rich person disowned his daughter because she married this illiterate peasant. He didn't want him to marry him. But she loved him. Rachel loved him. And so she married him and she told him, go study Torah. He went to study for 12 years and he came back and heard a conversation between his wife and her neighbor. And she said, if my husband would want to go back for another 12 years, I'd be the happiest person. And he turned around, didn't even say hello to her, went back for another 12 years. He studied for 24 years and amassed 24,000 students. So he's now how old? 64 years old. These 24,000 students died during the period of Sfirat HaOmer. That means everything he worked hard for, his career, his life, disintegrated in front of his eyes. Can you imagine how depressed he must have felt? Can you imagine how upset, how frustrated, how angry he should have been on that Lag BaOmer as he saw all his students die? Can you imagine you build a company, you invest in the latest AI technology, you figure out a gimmick, a trick, and you have the $1 billion in front of you. And then the tariffs come, the stock market tanks, and you lose all your $1 trillion. You've lost everything. How would you feel on that day that you lost everything? How would you feel on the day that the relationship, the boy you are dating, the boy you think you are going to marry, he comes to you one day and he says, well, you're not for me. And you feel crushed and you feel broken and you feel like your life has disintegrated in front of you. The boy of your dreams, the chuppah that you dreamt of, the life that you dreamt of is shattered, is gone. And you think, OMG, my life is over. What did Rabbi Akiva do on Lag BaOmer? He didn't stay put and he wasn't miserable. He went up, traveled to the north of Israel, and he acquired 5 new students. Amongst them was Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and Reb Meir, 5 students. And he taught them the Torah. And because of those 5 students, we have the whole entire Talmud. They are quoted on every page of the Talmud. They are the future of the Torah. They are what gave us the Torah. They were the future generation. That is Rabbi Akiva. He didn't give up in the face of horror, in the face of onslaught, in the face of pain, in the face of tragedy, in a place where anybody else would just give up and say, my life is shattered, my life is ruined. Let me just be miserable and drink beer all day long and drink wine and sit in the bath all day long. No. The joy of Lag BaOmer is that Rabbi Akiva said, I will not cower, I will not bend, I will continue, I will persevere. That is Lag BaOmer. Capish? What a lesson. And this lesson is also what it says in the Haftarah of this week. Does anybody know the Parsha this week? Very good. And what's the Haftarah talk about? The Haftarah of Mitzorah gives us a fascinating tale. Tanakh, by the way, you want to read the wildest stories? Read the Bible. Beautiful stories, 24 books of Moses, unbelievable. So the Haftarah tells a story, it's in Melachim Bet, Kings 2, and it's, by the way, Mitzorah means leprosy. Where did leprosy come from? Lashon Hara. You know that a few weeks ago, those of you who were here at the Shir saw that we had replaced our windows. So on the day we replaced our windows, DOB inspector shows up, Department of Buildings. Knock, knock, knock on the door. Now the guy who was replacing our windows knew the rules. You don't ever let a DOB inspector into your home. I didn't know this, I would have let him in. You don't ever let anybody into your home without a warrant. This is America, you have rights. No police in my home, you want to come home? A warrant. So he said, we received 35 calls to 311 complaining about you. I said, 35 calls, what do we do? He said, the neighbors are complaining that there's garbage amassed and piled up outside your house. I said, it's before Pesach, and we decided to, get rid of a lot of stuff. And the windows, old windows, we changed them, so what's the big deal? And the law states that you are legally allowed to change your windows. You know that, right? In a one-family residence, you can change your windows. You don't need no DOB. So I thought about that. 35 calls. These neighbors who won't say good morning to me. When I walk past them on the street, they won't say hello to me. The only time they ever say anything is to scream about my kids who are screaming about the neighborhood. The only thing they say is free Palestine, they scream to me. But 35 calls of concerned citizens saying Lashon Hara to the DOB, right? What a lesson. But anyways, the Torah talks about Metzora, which is leprosy. So the story takes place, the Syrian army, it was surrounded the northern kingdom of Israel in a town called Samaria, Shomron today. Now, they sieged Shomron. In those days, the ultimate weapon was to lay a siege around, and if the besieged party couldn't break out, they basically would starve to death. This is how they did it. So they cut off all supplies to this place, and the king of Israel at that time was Yehoram. It was so bad that there was cannibalism going on. Yehoram, the king, meets a lady and she says, I'm very upset. He says, why are you upset? She says, because I made a deal with my neighbor that yesterday we cooked my child and we ate my child. And today we were supposed to cook her child, but she hid her child and she's keeping him for herself. And when Yehoram heard the story, he was like completely shattered. Like, this is what we resorted to. Cannibalism. I guess when you're so hungry, you have nothing to eat, it just drives you so crazy that this is what happened. Mothers cooking their children. We read the story on Tisha B'Av. So it says actually a donkey's head, right? Head of a donkey was being sold for food for 80 pieces of silver, and a cup of dove's dung, the Melachim says, was being sold for a meal for 5 pieces of silver. Can you imagine dung? It's like preposterous. Yes, Jews. Yeah. When there's no food, this is what it is. This is, by the way, this is after on this week's parsha. So I'm not making up a word here. Yeah, Melachim Bet. Open up it. Yeah. Anyways, so the prophet at the time was Elisha, and Yehoram chased Elisha. He's like blaming him, and then Elisha says the following prophecy: so says Hashem, tomorrow at this time, a se'ah is a weight of fine flour will be sold for a shekel. That means there's going to be so much flour tomorrow at this time that 1 shekel is going to be for flour, and 2 sa'as for barley. Anyways, there was an officer there, and he says, "Oh, it was never going to happen." So Elisha told him, "You will see it, but you will not enjoy it." And then the Haftarah continues the story. There were 4 lepers, 4 people who had tzarat because they spoke Lashon Hara. What's the punishment for tzarat? Where do you go?
You have to be
Banished outside the camp. Don't you have to be what?
You have to fix your walls or something, right? You're sent away from
So it depends if the tzarat is on your body, on your clothing, on your walls of your house. We told about it. If it's on your body, you have to be banished from the camp. So these 4 lepers were banished. They were outside. And the Haftarah tells the story. They said, we have 3 choices. Choice number 1 is to go back into the city. But if we go back into the city, there's no food there, we'll die anyway. Choice number 2 is to stay here and we'll die of starvation here. And choice number 3, the Syrian army is right there. They have plenty food, they have plenty supplies, they have plenty everything. We'll go and surrender ourselves to the Syrians. If they kill us, well, they kill us. But if they take us as if they kidnap us, at least we'll be alive. We'll have what to eat. So they decide to take a step forward. They go forward. Anybody know the story? Yes, what happened? That's Pesach, different story. Different story, different time. That's different time. Very good, but different story. This story, what happened is, as the 4 lepers march forward, the Syrian army think that the Jews are sending against them wagons and, AK-47s and F-16s and tanks and I don't know what. They thought that there were armies joining them from different directions, and they all ran away. So these 4 lepers come into the camp of the Syrian army, and they have a feast like they've never feasted before, and they eat and they drink and they take the gold and the silver, put it on them, and then they say, hold on a second, why should we keep all this for ourselves? There's so much here. Let's call the Jews, save their lives, right? So they went back to the guards of the city, tried to convince them that the Syrians had left and you can come, and the guards didn't believe them. The king had to send some scouts and spies until finally it was revealed that it's true. And when that was revealed, there was a mass stampede to get out of the gates of the city. And the officer who made fun of Elisha the day before saw all the bounty, and he was killed in the stampede, fulfilling the prophecy of Elisha. You will see it, but you will not enjoy it. There are 3 lessons to be learned from this story. Lesson number 1, when you feel stuck in life, when you feel that you have problems, the worst thing to do is just to remain in place. You got to take a step forward. You got to march. You got to do something. Do anything. What they did, these lepers, they just went forward, and Hashem took care of the rest. Hashem made the Syrians think this is like a mass army. Like similar to the 6-day war, the Egyptians thought that the Americans and British had joined Israel. Lesson number 2, often we're afraid to initiate new projects, to undertake new ventures. The lepers imagined that there was a whole Syrian army coming to attack them, and when they moved ahead, everything disintegrated. And lesson number 3, the salvation came from the lepers. Lepers represent the bad parts of us. There are some parts in us that are no good, some parts in us that are deep in our psyche, in our personality, and sometimes those things in life that save us. Sometimes we have to look at our dark, at our bad, and sometimes they can be our saviors. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that this is similar to the idea of Lag BaOmer. When Rabbi Akiva realized that his whole edifice was shattered, that everything he built in his life was destroyed, that the tower, that the story, that the sheer work and hard work that he had built and amassed was completely destroyed, he did not give up. He did not stumble. All he did was get up the next morning, as painful as it was, and create a new edifice with 5 students. He didn't have 24,000 the second time. He had 5 students. But these 5 students were the forebearers. Every page in the Talmud mentions these 5 rabbis. And that is what we celebrate on Lag BaOmer. Right? We're in 18 days so far. Last night was 18. This is the next 15 days. This is Lag BaOmer. Capish? So far, so good? Any questions so far? Okay, everything's good. Fantastic. So the other thing that happened on Lag BaOmer, anybody know what else we celebrate on Lag BaOmer? What else do we celebrate? Tzvi. Anybody? Very good. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Bal Yochai nimshachta. I remember one of the greatest beautiful memories when I was a child, a little kid of 17, 18, 19. I would get on the bus to Miron. It was magical, getting on that mountain with 500,000 Jews. A couple of years ago, there was a tragedy there, but getting on that mountain, it's just where you see all Am Yisrael, Sephardic, Ashkenaz, Hasidim, non-Hasidim, every kind of religious, non-religious, all Jews are there. And all dancing, and the whole night, literally the whole night. And it's Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So it's called Hilula de Rashbi. What does Hilula de Rashbi mean? What does Hilula mean? Nope. Hilula is what? But specifically, what kind of celebration? A Yortzeit is called Yom Hilula. But what is Yom Hilula? The literal translation?
There it is.
Wedding day. The wedding day of Rashbi. How could it be that the Yortzeit, the day the person died, should be a sad day, right? The day a person died, he's no longer here, we say Kaddish, is called a wedding day. What? Why would it be called a wedding day? So to understand this, the Gemara says the following. The Talmud says like this. Amalei Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda. Shmuel says to Rabbi Yehuda, Shinana, sharp one. Chtoif ve'achol. In this world, he said, grab and eat. Chtoif ve'ishti, grab and drink. Quickly, eat, quickly drink. The alma das linan mine, because the world that we are leaving, this world, kehilul adami is compared to a wedding. Now that's very strange. If you want to tell a person that we live in this world for 70, 80, 90 years, it's a very short time, and therefore you should eat and drink and whatever, it passes fast. I could think of a lot of ways to say something moves fast. You could say, you know what, it moves fast like a Ferrari. It moves fast like, I don't know, but why like a wedding? Maybe it moves fast. Can anybody think of another example? What is something that moves fast? A what? Yeah, Testa. In the old days, in the times of Talmud, what moves fast? How about, that's a good idea. This world is so fast like a horse. That would be a nice example. But instead, he said like a wedding. What? Wedding? What's the connection? Time goes so fast, yes.
When you're having fun, when it's connected to the...
But why a wedding? There's got to be an intrinsic connection between a wedding and this.
Yeah.
You know what?
Like our wedding, it was like over.
You would have been fast, yeah. So the Talmud elaborates, eat fast. If you have money to enjoy, don't wait until tomorrow because maybe you're going to die and you won't have any enjoyment. Because this world is compared to a wedding day. Today it is, and tomorrow it's not, like a wedding that goes fast. That's what the Talmud says. What's special about a wedding? So a wedding, well, first we'll tell the story of Rashbi. One time a couple came to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, and they said to him, we married for 10 years, and we do not have children. What does the Talmud say about a couple that's married for 10 years, doesn't have children? Divorce. Why do you divorce? Right, because as we learned last week, there's a mitzvah to have children. So if you're married to a woman for 10 years and she can't produce children, you get divorced. Today, do you get divorced for such a thing? Today, we'll talk about it offline, but you don't get divorced. But the Talmud says if you're married to a woman for 10 years, don't have children, get divorced. Oh! Yes, true. Like who? The Rebbe was married and unfortunately didn't have children. Yes, the Rebbe every single year on Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, the Haftarah, when you get the Haftarah, it's a skula, it's an omen for having children. And every year he read the Haftarah and he cried and he cried and he cried and it was deep pain. Yes, the Rebbe never had children. But the Talmud says if you're married to a woman and you do not have, you get divorced. So they came to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and they said to him, we're married for 10 years. What should we do? We want to get divorced so we can fulfill the mitzvah and have children. Give us a blessing. Or, anyways, he said to them, my advice, get divorced. But before you get divorced, have a divorce party. That means, just like when you got married, you had a party, you invited all your friends. So to now make a massive divorce party. Invite all your friends to celebrate with you this divorce. The story of the guy who comes to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, I want to divorce my wife. The rabbi says, if you divorce your wife, it says the Mizbeach, the altar, sheds tears. It says the altar, God sheds tears. So the guy says to the rabbi, if the altar wants to shed tears, that's his problem. I want to rejoice. So anyways, the Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, that was a joke. Don't take it seriously. Anyway, the Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, make a divorce party. Fine, they do this. They invite all their friends and make a massive party. They drink, and she gives him wine to drink. And when he's a little shikker, a little topsy-turvy, he says to his wife, listen, my beautiful wife, I know we're getting divorced, and I'll never be with you again, but I want you to know, take one thing from my house that you really, really want, and it's yours. Whatever you want, the most precious thing in my house is yours. Take it. So, and then he kind of passes out sometime that night, and she then tells her servant to take the one thing that she cherishes more than anything else, and that is You guys know the story, beautiful. He takes him. So in the morning, he wakes up in her father's house. He says, what's going on? And she says to him, you told me, take the one thing that's most precious, and that's you. So they went back to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and they told him the story. And Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai said to them, I give you a blessing that within a year you'll have a child. And my question to you is, if Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was able to bless them to have a child, why did he make them have a divorce party? Why didn't he just bless them to have a child? Right? Why? What do you think? The what? To value each other. But let's explain that. You see, when she was divorcing him, and then she told him, I want you, that was the most unconditional love that exists. Complete and utter unconditional love. There was no reason for her to be with him, for him to be with her. Nothing. She was never going to have children with him. Never. She just took him for him. Because the other half of my neshama, that's it, no other reason. And so Rabbi Shimon Yochai was able to draw down a special blessing for this couple to be able to bless them in such beautiful harmony. When they displayed that deep, deep affection for no reason whatsoever. You see, the issue of marriages, and I speak to couples, singles all the time. You know, when you're a single in Johannesburg, South Africa, or Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, where I'm from, you're in big trouble. When you are a single, you're in trouble. Because what are you going to do? Everybody's married. You're one of 3 singles in shul hanging out there. There's nobody to talk to. Everybody's talking about their kids and their professions and their diapers and everything else. And when you're a single in Manhattan, New York City, and not this crowd, but other singles, tell me, why should I get married? Why should I get married? I have my laundry done. I have a cook to give me my food. I go to parties. I hang out with all the singles. Life is good. To get married means I have to be with one woman, one girl. She's going to limit to me, can no longer go out every night to parties. Right? Nobody here would ever say such a thing. No, this crowd. Other crowds. The one woman is going to limit to me. I cannot I wake up in the morning, I can go wherever I want. I wake up in the morning, I can go to Japan if I want. I can go to Panama if I want. I can go to Johannesburg if I want. But if I'm married, I have to ask her. I have to ask her for permission. She has to call me. What am I doing? 5 p.m. I have to be home. I have to go out for dinner with her. Why would I want to be married? It's limiting. Is marriage limiting?
I don't think so. I think it's the opposite.
When it comes to marriage, it seems like it's limiting, but when you get married, you're able to tap into the infinite. When you get married and limit yourself to one person, you become infinite. And it's something it's like a contradiction. Doesn't make sense. What do you mean, Rabbi? What are you talking? What are you smoking? I'm now limited to one person, now I'm unlimited? Yes, that's marriage. That's what happens. When you are with one person, you now obtain an infinite power inside of you. It's like magic. It's like something that didn't exist before. It's unbelievable. It's insane. It's preposterous. But that's life. That's marriage. That's what happens. And so the same idea is when it comes to this world. You think you're limited by Torah and mitzvot. God tells you, wake up in the morning, put on tefillin, daven, keep kosher, keep Shabbat. It's a 3-day holiday. 3-day holiday. And I want to shower so badly. I really, really want to shower. 3-day holiday. Pesach right now. 3 days. 3 days of no cooking, of no phone. That phone, I want to check timesofisrael.com. I want to check jpost.com. I want to check newyorkpost.com. I want to see what's going on. But when you keep that Torah and mitzvot, you're able to tap into the infinite. You're able to become something bigger and greater. You're able to tap into the essence of God, something that was unheard of, something that was unthinkable before. And that's what it means. That's what it means. Behilula, a wedding day. Once upon a time, there was a rabbi by the name of Rabbi Glick, Avraham Glick. And he was a person who did missions for the Rebbe all over the world. He was like a traveling rabbi. And one time, this guy, Avraham Glick, met another rabbi by the name of... will come to me. Another rabbi in Europe. He met him. Survivor of the Holocaust. And he was telling him the following story about the Rebbe. He said, one time I was in a private audience with the Rebbe in Brooklyn, New York. And the Rebbe told me, I have a personal favor to ask of you. And if you do this, like I promise you Gan Eden. For the Rebbe to promise is like, I promise you Gan Eden, the world to come. Right? What was the mitzvah? The Rebbe said, in a town near Munich, Germany, a small town called Tutzing, there is a cemetery. And in the cemetery, it's an old cemetery where Jews were buried, and the non-Jews there, now they're doing some construction and building, and therefore the cemetery, the walls have gone down. The walls between Jews and non-Jews should not be buried together. The walls have disintegrated, and the cemetery needs work. Covered hames. It's one of the greatest mitzvot, to take care of the dead, of the people who died. So he asked Rabbi Glick, please go to that cemetery and make sure it's done, and send me pictures so I know it's done. So he says, I made this a priority, and I went to this place, and I did exactly what the Rebbe asked of me. And when he shared this story with the other rabbi, who I forget his name, the other rabbi became pale in the face, and he said, what's the name of the town? Munich, Tutzing? And he says, I had survived the concentration camps, and we had gone on the death march. And his Rebbe was with him in the Holocaust. And when the American army was there were many of us who had died, many bodies. And my Rebbe told me, let's spend a few days burying the dead. Kavod hames. Honoring those who had died. And we spent a few days burying those people, and it was in this town of Tutzing that we buried them. And so he says, I don't understand. The Rebbe never met these Jews who were buried in Tutzing. He has nothing to do with them. And yet he says, I promise you Gan Eden if you go and take care of these Jews. That is a true Rebbe. That's a true leader. And what does he tell Rabbi Glick? I promise you Gan Eden. Because when you do a mitzvah, when you do something finite, but this is what God commands us in the Torah, you become infinite. You become connected to the essence of Hashem, to the essence of God in the deepest way possible. This is what it means. This world is compared to a wedding. Why to a wedding? Because just like a wedding, when you think two finite individuals are coming together and you're becoming limited, but really and truly what's happening is you're becoming completely unlimited. This is why Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai is called Bei Hilula. Because Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was the one who founded the Zohar, who taught us Chassidut, who taught us the Plimius of the Torah, who taught us how to truly value a mitzvah, how it is the infinite. It says at one time, one of the Chassidim of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai went to a faraway country and he became wealthy. And he came back, and the Chassidim seated around Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, he noticed that they were a little jealous. This guy is a little wealthy, They poverty-stricken paupers, they barely putting bread on their table, they were a little wealthy. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai took all his students to a valley, and he said the famous words, Bika, Bika, valley, valley. Hismali dinarizah, fill yourself up with golden coins. And the whole valley turned into golden coins. And he told his Chassidim, whoever wants, take whatever you want. Take whatever you want. But know that when you're taking something, what happens? You're taking from your share in the world to come. And no Chassidim took anything, nothing. This is what Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai teaches us. The value of living in this world. When you do a mitzvah in this world, when you put on tefillin in the morning, when you light Shabbat candles on Friday night, you are connecting yourself with the essence of God. You see, God is infinite. If I want to speak to any of you here, I can WhatsApp you, I can text you, I can Instagram you, I can DM you. But if you want to speak to God who's infinite, how do you connect to God? You can't pick up the phone to talk to Him. There's nothing you can do to connect to him. The only way to connect to him is by doing what he says connects me to you. The 613 mitzvot are direct red lines to connect with Hashem. That's the only way to connect. So therefore, this will may seem limiting. It may seem limiting when I wake up in the morning and put on tefillin and eat kosher and do only the kosher things, but this is how you connect to the infinite. I just, somebody recommended these herbs for this, these allergies that I have. The problem is with these herbs, I didn't see a hechsher on it. So I called up this Chinese place in Chinatown and I looked online, they have an OU hechsher. And I speak to the Chinese pharmacist and say, can you give me these herbs? I heard they are good for allergies. And she says, yes, we could do it. We can produce it with an OU hechsher. So I'm very excited. Tomorrow they'll give me these herbs I can take for these allergies. And that stuff doesn't work for me. It doesn't. I try everything. It doesn't work. I need special herbs and other stuff I take. But this is what it means, that this world is kibei hilula damya, that when you do the right thing, you connect with God in the deepest way. So tonight, to sum up, we learned two things about Lag BaOmer. One reason why it's called Lag BaOmer, what the celebration is all about, is because nobody knows, right? Danny, you're going to tell us. Lag BaOmer, why is this a test? Why? What do we celebrate Lag BaOmer? The second reason, correct. What's the first reason?
They stopped dying.
Because they stopped dying. And what's good about the fact they stopped dying? Because what? Very good. That's what it is. Changing your focus. Rabbi Akiva, after losing everything, he didn't succumb to depression. He moved forward and he reignited everything. 5 students. And the second reason, what do we celebrate Lag BaOmer is? Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, which is called Bei Hilula, which is called a wedding, because when you limited, you actually tap into the infinite. That's the basic shir for tonight.